There is something powerful and life-changing that many people overlook when it comes to dealing with toxic individuals. We often believe we need to fight them, confront them, or convince them to change, but the truth is that the most effective way to remove toxic people forever is much simpler. It lies in one secret thing: changing the way you value yourself. When you begin to see yourself as someone worthy of respect, peace, and happiness, you automatically stop allowing room for people who thrive on negativity, manipulation, and disrespect. The first and most powerful truth about removing toxic people from your life forever is understanding your self-worth. Many people allow negativity to stay in their lives not because they enjoy it, but because they have not yet realized how much they deserve better. When your self-worth is low, you tolerate behaviors that drain your energy, break your spirit, and rob you of peace. You convince yourself that it's normal to be mistreated, ignored, or manipulated. But the moment you raise your standards and truly see yourself as valuable, everything changes. Toxic people can only remain where they are given permission, and that permission is silently granted when you don't know your worth. Self-worth is not about arrogance or thinking you're better than others. It is about knowing that your time, emotions, and energy are precious. It's about believing that your presence is a gift, and anyone who chooses to be part of your life must respect that. When you hold yourself to this truth, you automatically filter out those who come with harmful intentions. Think about it. Would someone who truly values themselves allow constant disrespect, lies, or manipulation to continue? The answer is no. They would recognize those behaviors as signs of toxicity and refuse to be part of it. One of the reasons toxic people stay so long in someone's life is because they are masters at making you doubt yourself. They chip away at your confidence, making you feel like you are not good enough, not strong enough, or not worthy of love and respect. When you start believing those lies, you cling to their approval. You think, if I can just please them, maybe they'll treat me better. But this cycle never ends because toxic people thrive on control, not connection. The moment you build self-worth, you stop seeking validation from them. You no longer beg for scraps of kindness because you already know you deserve much more than what they are capable of giving. Self-worth also gives you courage, the courage to walk away, to say no, and to protect your peace. Many people fear losing toxic relationships because they think being alone is worse. But when you have self-worth, you understand that solitude is far better than being surrounded by those who tear you down. You would rather spend time with yourself, growing and building your future, than waste time with people who sabotage your happiness. This shift in perspective is what pushes toxic people out of your life forever. They realize you are no longer vulnerable to their tactics, and they have no choice but to leave. Another important aspect of self-worth is the energy you project. When you truly value yourself, you carry yourself differently. You speak with confidence, you set clear boundaries, and you attract people who mirror that same level of respect. Positive, uplifting individuals naturally enter your life, while toxic ones feel uncomfortable in your presence. It's almost like you create an invisible shield that repels negativity. This is not magic, it is simply the natural consequence of knowing your value. Self-worth is not built overnight, it takes time, reflection, and practice. It often begins with small steps, like refusing to engage in toxic conversations, saying no when you mean it, or limiting time with people who drain you. Each step builds confidence, and over time, you grow stronger. Eventually, you will look back and realize that toxic people no longer linger around you, not because you forced them out, but because your energy no longer welcomes them. The secret to freedom from toxic people is not about controlling them, it's about controlling yourself. The moment you understand your worth, the chains of manipulation break. You no longer seek their approval, you no longer fall for their games, and you no longer tolerate their disrespect. Instead, you rise above it, choosing peace, happiness, and love. That is the true power of self-worth. It is the key that unlocks the door to freedom, and once you embrace it, toxic people disappear forever. One of the most overlooked truths about toxic people is that they cannot survive without access to you. Their influence, control, and manipulation only work when they have direct entry into your mind, emotions, and daily life. Access is the fuel they need to drain your energy, disrupt your peace, and keep you tangled in their negativity. The moment you cut off that access, they lose their power completely. This is why so many toxic relationships drag on for years. because we continue to give them permission to step into our world, even when we know deep down that their presence is harmful. Think about how a toxic person operates. They thrive on being able to call you whenever they want, to text you with their problems, to guilt trip you into helping them, or to pull you into endless arguments. They rely on your availability because without your attention, their games collapse. Just like a parasite needs a host to survive, toxic people need someone who will tolerate their behavior. When you realize this, it becomes clear that the key to removing them forever is not fighting them directly, but controlling your own availability. If you stop giving them access, you starve their influence. This access often comes in many forms. Sometimes it is physical, spending too much time around people who bring nothing but negativity. Other times it is emotional, allowing someone to dump their bitterness on you while you carry the weight. And often it is digital, keeping the door open through social media, texts, and constant communication. Every small doorway is an opportunity for toxic people to enter and create chaos. By closing those doors, you gradually build a wall of protection around your peace. Many people struggle with cutting access because they feel guilty. Toxic individuals are skilled manipulators who use tactics like pity, shame, and obligation. They might say, "After all I've done for you, you can't even pick up the phone," or "You've changed. You don't care about me anymore." These are not genuine cries for connection, but strategies to regain access. The truth is, if someone truly loved and respected you, they would never force their way into your life through guilt or manipulation. Real love respects boundaries, but toxicity breaks them. Cutting access doesn't always mean a dramatic confrontation or cutting someone off completely overnight. Sometimes it's about gradual distancing. You might start by limiting how much time you spend with them, or by not responding immediately to every call or message. You might unfollow them on social media or stop engaging in conversations that drain you. Over time, these small actions add up, and toxic people realize that their grip on you is weakening. They sense that they no longer control your emotions or decisions, and when they can't get what they want, they eventually drift away. The beauty of controlling access is that it shifts the power back to you. Toxic people want you to believe that you're trapped, that you have no choice but to tolerate them. But in reality, you always have the power to decide who gets access to your life. Your attention, your energy, and your time are privileges, not rights. Not everyone deserves them, and especially not those who only bring harm. When you master this principle, you will notice a profound change in your life. Your mind becomes clearer because you are no longer weighed down by constant drama. Your emotions stabilize because you are no longer riding the roller coaster of someone else's chaos. And your environment becomes more peaceful because you've closed the doors that once let in stress and negativity. Toxic people survive on access, but they cannot exist in the life of someone who guards their peace fiercely. The secret is not in changing them, but in changing what you allow. Once you cut off their access, their power fades, their influence vanishes, and their presence disappears from your life forever. One of the greatest secrets to removing toxic people from your life forever is understanding the power of silence. Toxic people thrive on reaction. They need your energy, your anger, your explanations, and your justifications to feel powerful. Every time you argue back, defend yourself, or try to prove your worth to them, you are feeding their ego and giving them control. But when you choose silence, not silence out of weakness, but silence as a strategy, you starve them of the very thing they need to survive. Silence is not the absence of strength, it is the presence of discipline. It takes far more courage to remain calm in the face of provocation than it does to explode in anger. Toxic individuals are experts at pushing buttons. They know how to trigger you, how to make you feel guilty, and how to drag you into their drama. When you stop responding, they lose that power. Imagine a fire burning out of control. Fuel is what keeps it alive. Your reactions are the fuel. Remove the fuel, and the fire dies. In the same way, silence puts out the flames of toxicity. This doesn't mean you ignore every person who challenges you. Healthy relationships involve communication, honesty, and sometimes difficult conversations. But toxic people are different. They don't argue to resolve, they argue to dominate. They don't question to understand, they question to manipulate. In these cases, words become weapons and silence becomes your shield. By refusing to participate in their games, you protect yourself without wasting your energy on someone who has no intention of changing. The power of silence also works because it creates boundaries without you needing to explain them. When you stop reacting to insults, criticism, or manipulative comments, the toxic person begins to realize that you are no longer playing their game. They can scream, complain, or accuse, but if you remain composed, their tactics lose effectiveness. Over time, they grow frustrated and eventually stop trying because they no longer receive the emotional reaction they crave. Another strength of silence is the clarity it gives you. When you stop engaging in toxic conversations, you free your mind to reflect on what is actually happening. You begin to see patterns more clearly, how they twist words, how they play victim, and how they drain your energy. In the heat of constant arguments, it's easy to get lost in emotions, but silence pulls you out of the storm and allows you to see the situation from a higher perspective. From this clarity, you can make stronger decisions about who belongs in your life and who doesn't. Many people fear that silence makes them look weak, but the opposite is true. Silence communicates confidence. It shows that you are in control of yourself, that you don't need to prove anything, and that you refuse to be dragged into unnecessary battles. Toxic people rely on noise and chaos. They cannot stand stillness. When you embrace silence, you shift the balance of power. Instead of chasing their approval, you show them that you are perfectly fine without their validation. That independence unsettles them and weakens their grip on you. Silence also teaches you self-mastery. Every time you resist the urge to argue back, you strengthen your emotional discipline. This doesn't just protect you from toxic people, it elevates every area of your life. You become calmer at work, more patient in relationships, and more resilient in the face of challenges. You realize that not every battle deserves your energy, and not every voice deserves your response. The power of silence is one of the simplest yet most effective ways to remove toxic people forever. It strips them of their control, frustrates their attempts to manipulate, and shields your peace. It may not change who they are, but it will change how much influence they have over you. And once you learn to master silence, you'll find that many toxic people walk away on their own, because without your reaction, they have nothing left to take. One of the most powerful shifts you can make to remove toxic people from your life forever is redirecting your attention inward. Toxic people survive not only on access and reaction, but also on your focus. The more time you spend thinking about what they said, how they treated you, or how unfair they are, the more energy you give them. They live rent-free in your mind, shaping your emotions and controlling your decisions. But the moment you stop obsessing over them and start focusing on yourself, your growth, your peace, your goals, they naturally lose significance. They fade out because your energy is no longer feeding them. Focusing on yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. Many people grow up believing that self-care or prioritizing your own needs is wrong. This belief makes it easy for toxic people to take advantage of you. They know you will put their needs above your own, that you will sacrifice your peace to keep them happy, and that you will drain yourself to meet their expectations. But once you decide to put yourself first, everything changes. Toxic people cannot survive in an environment where they are no longer the center of your attention. When you shift the focus to yourself, you begin to rebuild your identity outside of the toxic relationship. For so long, you may have defined yourself through their opinions or their approval. You may have wondered, am I good enough for them? What will they think if I do this? That constant worry keeps you chained to their control. But when you focus inward, the questions change. Instead, you ask, what do I need right now? What makes me feel alive? What future do I want to build? These questions guide you to a healthier, stronger, and more independent version of yourself. This shift also helps you see how much time and energy you've wasted on negativity. Imagine all the hours you've spent replaying arguments, defending yourself, or trying to win their acceptance. What if that same energy had been invested in your career, your health, your passions, or your dreams? Focusing on yourself means reclaiming that wasted energy and channeling it into something that actually brings growth. Toxic people hate this because they realize they no longer control your focus. The spotlight is no longer on them, it's on you. Another reason this principle works is because of the law of attraction. The more you dwell on toxic people, the more negativity you invite into your life. But when you focus on self-improvement, positivity begins to surround you. You start meeting new people who share your energy, your values, and your goals. These uplifting connections gradually replace the toxic ones until one day you realize you're surrounded by people who bring out the best in you, not the worst. Focusing on yourself also builds confidence. Toxic individuals often try to make you feel small so they can feel big. They highlight your flaws, mock your ambitions, and undermine your achievements. When your focus is on them, their words cut deeply. But when your focus is on yourself, their insults lose power. You are too busy building, learning, and growing to be bothered by their negativity. Their attempts to pull you down no longer work because you are rising higher than they can reach. This approach doesn't mean you ignore everyone else or become self-absorbed. It simply means you stop pouring into people who only drain you and instead pour into your own growth. As you improve yourself, you naturally have more to give to the people who truly deserve it. You can be a better friend, partner, parent, or leader, not because you sacrificed yourself for toxic people, but because you invested in your own strength first. The truth is, toxic people hate being ignored. They hate when the attention shifts away from them. But that's exactly why focusing on yourself works so well. It sends a message: I am no longer your source of power. I am no longer controlled by your negativity. My energy belongs to me. And once you make that shift, toxic people slowly but surely disappear from your life, because without your focus, they have nothing left to hold on to. If there is one practice that permanently removes toxic people from your life, it is learning how to set and enforce strong boundaries. Toxic individuals thrive in environments where there are no limits, where they can freely invade your time, your emotions, and your energy. Without boundaries, they see you as open territory, someone they can manipulate, control, or drain whenever they choose. But once you establish clear boundaries, you create a protective shield around your peace. You send a powerful message: this is who I am, this is what I allow, and this is what I will never tolerate. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate you from the world. They are gates that protect your well-being. They are the lines that separate what is healthy from what is harmful. When you say no to something that disrespects you, you are not being unkind. You are being wise. When you limit the time you spend with people who constantly complain, insult, or control you, you are not being selfish. You are preserving your energy. Toxic people may call you cold or distant, but in truth, you are simply refusing to be abused. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with toxic relationships is because they fear setting boundaries. They worry about upsetting others, being judged, or losing relationships. Toxic people exploit this fear. They count on you being too nice, too forgiving, or too afraid to stand up for yourself. They will push and push until they see how far they can go. But once you draw a line and refuse to let it be crossed, they are forced to confront something they hate: limits. Boundaries take many forms. Sometimes it's verbal, saying, I don't accept being spoken like that. Sometimes it's physical, choosing not to be in the same space as someone who drains your energy. Sometimes it's emotional, refusing to absorb someone else's negativity as your own. And sometimes it's digital, muting, blocking, or unfollowing someone online who constantly spreads toxicity. Every boundary is an act of self-respect, a reminder that your life is not a dumping ground for other people's chaos. The beauty of boundaries is that they reveal the true nature of people around you. Healthy individuals will respect your limits. They may not always like them, but they will understand them because they also value respect and balance. Toxic people, however, will resist them fiercely. They will call you selfish, accuse you of changing, or try to guilt trip you into lowering your guard. This reaction is actually proof that your boundary is working. The discomfort they feel is not your problem. It is their realization that they can no longer use you the way they once did. Boundaries also give you control over your own life. Without them, your time is consumed by everyone else's demands. You're constantly putting out fires, solving other people's problems, and sacrificing your own needs. With boundaries, you reclaim your schedule, your focus, and your energy. You begin to live life on your terms, rather than being pulled in 100 directions by toxic influences. That sense of control brings peace, confidence, and freedom. It's important to understand that boundaries are not a one-time event. They are a lifestyle. You will need to enforce them consistently. Toxic people often test limits to see if you are serious. If you say you won't tolerate disrespect, but then forgive repeated insults, your boundary collapses. But if you stand firm, they eventually learn that you mean what you say. And once they realize they cannot cross your lines, many toxic people simply leave. Because a boundary-filled environment is one where they cannot survive. At the heart of it, boundaries are about protecting your peace. Peace is one of the most valuable treasures you can ever own. It is the foundation of happiness, clarity, and growth. Without peace, you cannot think clearly, love deeply, or live fully. Toxic people try to steal that peace every chance they get, but with strong boundaries, you guard it like a precious jewel. And in doing so, you make it impossible for toxic people to remain in your life. One of the hardest parts about removing toxic people from your life is the feeling of loss. Whether the person is a friend, a partner, a family member, or even a coworker, letting them go often feels like cutting away a piece of your life. And that's exactly what toxic people want you to believe. They want you to think that walking away from them leaves you empty, broken, or incomplete. But the truth is far different. When you release toxic people, you don't truly lose anything of value. You gain everything that really matters. You gain yourself. Toxic relationships often come with a heavy cost. You may lose your confidence because of constant criticism. You may lose your joy because of endless negativity. You may lose your identity because of manipulation or control. In the process of holding on to them, you slowly let go of yourself. That's why breaking free feels so painful. It's not just about losing them, it's about realizing how much of yourself you gave up while trying to keep them in your life. But here lies the powerful truth: when they leave, all those pieces of you can be rebuilt, reclaimed, and reborn. Think about what really happens when you let go of a toxic person. You gain back your time, time that was once wasted on arguments, drama, and emotional exhaustion. You gain back your energy, energy that was once poured into fixing someone who never wanted to change. You gain back your freedom, the ability to make choices without guilt, to live without manipulation, and to breathe without constant pressure. These are not small gains, they are life-changing. It's natural to feel sadness when people leave, even toxic ones, because the human heart becomes attached to patterns and familiarity. But comfort is not the same as happiness. Familiarity is not the same as love. Just because you were used to someone being in your life doesn't mean they were meant to stay. Sometimes, losing them is the exact doorway you need to walk through to discover who you really are without their shadow looming over you. What you gain after removing toxic people is clarity. You begin to see your worth more clearly. You recognize your dreams more vividly. You understand your values more deeply. Toxic people cloud your vision with their chaos. They make you doubt yourself, they minimize your goals, and they distract you with unnecessary battles. Once they are gone, your vision sharpens. You begin to focus on what truly matters: your growth, your peace, and your future. You also gain stronger relationships. When toxic people occupy space in your life, they block healthier connections from entering. Their negativity takes up the room that should be filled with positivity. But once you release them, you open the door for people who uplift, inspire, and respect you. Suddenly, you find yourself surrounded by support instead of sabotage, encouragement instead of criticism, and love instead of control. That shift is not accidental. It happens because you chose to remove what was draining you, making space for what nourishes you. Perhaps the greatest gain is rediscovering your voice. Toxic people often silence you. They make you feel that your opinions don't matter, your feelings are invalid, and your needs are inconvenient. Over time, you learn to quiet yourself just to keep the peace. But when they are no longer there, you begin to speak again, not just to others, but to yourself. You start affirming your worth, expressing your needs, and honoring your truth. That voice you reclaim is not just louder, it's stronger, wiser, and freer. So, while it may feel at first like you are losing someone, remember this: you are not losing them. You are losing the weight they placed on you. You are losing the chains that kept you bound. You are losing the noise that drowned out your own heart. In exchange, you gain peace, clarity, freedom, and the most important thing of all, you gain yourself. And when you truly gain yourself, toxic people disappear forever because you no longer need them and they no longer control you.